Your brand may be staying on top of current trends, but are you agile enough to stay relevant, resilient, and successful as customers, competition, and the world continues to change at a breakneck pace? I'm thrilled to share the newly revised version of my first book, The Agile Brand. I'm calling it The Agile Brand Revisited. It's been updated to reflect our continually changing world, and it provides 7 principles that form the backbone of an agile brand, offering detailed insights and actionable steps for incorporating them into your business strategy. This is the book that started it all, and I'm excited to share it with you. It's now available in print and digital formats and available everywhere. Learn more by going to the Agile Brand Guide website at www.agilebrandguide.com. Welcome to Season 5 of the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we talk with enterprise and technology platform leaders about the people, processes, and platforms that make marketing and customer experience successful, scalable, and sustainable. This is what creates an agile brand. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom, advisor and consultant for Fortune 1000 marketing and CX leaders and teams as principal and chief strategist at GK5A, and best-selling author, keynote speaker, entrepreneur, and Agile certified coach. The Agile Brand podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To sign up for the Agile Brand newsletter and get the latest insights and articles on marketing technology and CX, or to purchase a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, go to gregkihlstrom.com. You can also find all my books on Amazon and other retailers. And now on to the show. Today we're going to talk about why customer journey mapping matters and how it can improve customer loyalty and drive other customer and business outcomes. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Percy Rose, Customer Success Strategy Executive at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Percy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Greg. Glad to be here. Exciting topics.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to talking about this with you. And I know we were both at the CXPA Advance event a couple months ago. Didn't get a chance to talk with you then, but glad we could connect here and have this conversation. So why don't we start with you giving a little background on yourself as well as what you're currently doing at Hewlett Packard Enterprise.
Yeah, so I'm originally from New Orleans. I currently live in Portland, Oregon. I've been here for about 10 years. And I started my career at Accenture, so I was a consultant. Probably was there for a good 12 to 13 years. And I focused on systems integration, large, complex, global SAP implementations, actually. And that's really was the basis of my career, solutions integrations. And at one point, had a young family, young kids came along, and consulting life did not really align to having a young family and then traveling all the time. And so my client at the time was HP, now HPE. And essentially, they offered me a position, and I continued doing solutions integration internally. And so at about 5 years ago, I was sort of stepped back and looked at, I've been doing this a long time and kind of feel like I've, reached the max of what I want to do in this space. And I really tried to identify, what do I miss most about consulting? And that was really working directly with the customer. And so I really started to try to connect locally here in Portland, went to some customer success type of meetups, et cetera, and then felt like that's really the area that I want to build my expertise in. And my first step in customer success really was around doing journey mapping. And so that's why I'm very passionate about customer journey mapping. And quite frankly, it forms the basis of all of the work that I do with regards to customer success. So bringing us up to date, what I do is I help to lead the strategy for our Customer Success Center of Excellence in HPE. And we're focusing a lot on, like many companies, focusing on digital customer success, right? Our tech touch customers, how do we expand the reach and expand and get out to these tech touch customers with customer success principles, right? And so that's mainly what I'm working on now.
Wonderful, wonderful. So yeah, let's dive in and talk about customer journey mapping. And while a number of our listeners have probably been through the process at some point, if not often in their career, and those that haven't done it are probably at least familiar with what it is, I'd like to dive a little deeper and explore some of the overlooked items and maybe some misconceptions about customer journey mapping. So let's start with
Mhm.
some best practices for customer journey mapping that may be overlooked. So from your experience and perspective, what does a successful customer journey map tell, and what aspects of this are often overlooked?
So for me, and I look at customer journey mapping as a strategist, right? So for me, a customer journey map is a strategy document, right? And I really emphasize on that because for many people, customer journey mapping is a process document, which I think there's a big difference. So in my customer journey mapping, a successful customer journey map tells you why or why not a customer is or your customer base is deciding to continue to do business with you, expand business with you. For me, there really needs to be an intent behind understanding that, right? And so I normally start off with looking at renewal rates, net retention rates, bottom line numbers that are telling us if we're doing well with our customers. And then I work backwards. And so for me, that's the basis of a successful customer journey map is going to tell you, what areas of this customer's journey and experience with you are making the biggest difference, and then determining at the end of that contract if they want to continue doing business with you or if they want to expand doing business with you. And so as a result, after an effort is finished, I should have a pretty clear idea on what are those areas that are making the difference.
Yeah, yeah. So it's as important as making it accurate and making sure that we're mapping things correctly. It's also that it tells you something, right? Or that you're able to interpret it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's there's so many pieces of the journey map. You have the customer phases, you have the customer steps, you have the customer sentiment. Are they happy when they're onboarding? Are they sad when they're, going through the
Right.
purchasing process? When they're getting support from you, is it an easy experience? And all of those things are elements, but they're means to an end, right? You have to, in my mind, unless the information I'm getting out of this is telling me these set of experiences are essentially the reason why our customers are deciding to continue doing business with me. If I don't get that information, I'm sort of missing the boat. It's not a successful journey map for me.
Yeah.
I want to be able to walk away and say, okay, here's where we are with our customer retention rate. Let's just throw a number, 90%. I think we should be at 98%. These are the three areas in the journey map where I see we're falling short. I believe if we improve these areas, we will be able to get from 90% to 96% or 98%.
Yeah.
And so that's what I should be able to sort of walk away and summarize as a result of the customer journey mapping.
So what then do teams need to effectively do customer journey mapping well? What are the tools or processes or just, mindset that they need to do that? And where have you seen perhaps a desire to skip a step in the process that can cause challenges down the line?
Yeah, I think this is a big one for me. I think that the most important thing I find with customer journey mapping is talking to the customer. Most of the time, when customer journey mapping is done, it's done with maybe an internal group, maybe the voice of the customer team who has done a bunch of surveys. They'll sort of get in a room and maybe talk to account team members or other people who have maybe a closer relationship with the customer, and they'll sort of get into a room for a week or two, hash out a customer journey map, and then say, this is the customer experience. For me, there's a miss there, right? That's skipping a major step, which is actually talking to the customers. I don't I don't believe that gathering survey data is enough to give you the rich type of information that you would get with talking directly to them. And so it takes if you're going to start a customer journey mapping effort, it takes a while, right, to line up customer interviews. And it actually that's the most of the time in let's say a 3 to 4 month type of customer journey mapping effort. I would say getting 30, 40 interviews lined up with customers, getting on their calendar, spending maybe an hour talking to them, it can be difficult. I understand why that's often a step that's missed, but there are a massive amounts of information that you gather from those interviews. So that for me is the biggest step. And then it causes challenges down the line, because if you're truly trying to link this to financials and reasons why a customer is going to continue to do business with you, then it's so important to have their voice included.
Yeah. And so who should be in the room when this is happening? I mean, it seems like there's probably a balance between, you don't want too many people in the room, and yet you want the right people and you want enough perspective. So, what is that? How should you kind of think about? Obviously, every case is going to be slightly different, but like what's the mindset you should have, and far as who's included?
Yeah, well, for me, I think about this in terms of how I do customer journey mapping in two parts. I always do it in two parts. In the first part, I really just need the small team of people, a small team of people who are going and talking to customers, analyzing information, and so on, right? And that could be, let's say, working with a voice of the customer team, and they're going out doing the interviews. So it's not really important for me at the time to have people from all across the company participating in this sort of gathering and constructing this initial customer journey map, which I normally call a current state journey map, right? You're really relying on what is the customer telling us, and we want to gather all sorts of insights to rationalize this information, pull KPIs, pull surveys, pull all sorts of information to complete this picture on a current state journey map. This is what our customers say about us today. Then after we sort of have that information, then we pull people from across different organizations, right? We'll pull, let's say, representation from marketing, representation from sales, delivery, customer success, pricing, finance, right? You don't want 55 people in the room, right? But you do want representation across organizations. And then you want to present the findings and you say, okay, folks, here's a comprehensive view of what our customers are telling us. And you want all them to, number one, understand and really not just look at the journey map, but I'm talking about watch interviews of customers, right? We want them to actually hear. I lean very heavily on this is, you need to hear from these customers. You need to hear their voices. We record the sessions. You need to see their faces, kind of thing. And then, so it's number one, to get them to truly understand. But then secondly, now that they understand the importance of making a change, now you need to be a key participant in designing that future. So the second part of journey mapping is what I call desired state journey mapping, where now we have these groups who are motivated because they've heard directly from the customer. They're motivated to do something about it, and everybody plays a part, right? And it's so we design together as a collective group across multiple organizations. We break down these silos. We design that future experience. And it's really important, obviously, if you want to get buy-in in the end, right? So I can't just design with a small team of people, just go and design a customer journey and then expect the rest of the organization to adopt it, right? If this is the desired state, we need to collectively design it together, and then we automatically are going to have some level of buy-in across these organizations as we try to push change.
Yeah, makes sense. So we've talked about some of the things that customer journey mapping can do and some of the process, but want to talk a little bit more again, because I think a lot of people out there listening think they, I got this, I know all about it. And yet, again, I think as you've highlighted in several different ways, there's a lot of considerations that you want to make, from everything from the process to the people to the information that's captured
Right.
in the journey map. So what about unreasonable expectations as well? What can a journey map do, and what
Mhm.
might be unreasonable in expecting from a journey map? What are a couple of things that come to mind in terms of those kinds of things?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception that I often have faced in the past is that it's a quick process.
Yeah.
I now okay again, and this comes in the differentiation between a process mapping and a customer journey mapping. If people want to use journey mapping as a process map, meaning customer is going to do step one, step two, step three, step four, step five, and we've outlined the 12 steps that they do. Great, we've done a journey map. That can be quick, right? But if you want to do a journey map strategically, thinking through why is it that they're not, why is it we are not retaining our customers, right? That requires a lot of analysis and requires just a lot of thought in comparing information and benchmarking and so on. And so when I remember the first journey maps that I was working on was during COVID, and I had told our leadership team that we were going to do this effort, and I don't know, somehow they're thinking, oh, we've heard of journey mapping.
Right.
That'll take a couple weeks, right? And so it was like a constant tension behind, like, no, we're going to do it in this way, and the result is going to be very insightful, but this is going to be months. And during COVID, especially, to try to get interviews with customers, and people had other things to worry about, right? And so I think that our first time going around doing this, it was like the whole project must have been like 6 months or something. But yeah, I think even though it's quicker now, managing this thought that customer journey mapping should be quick, throw it together. We just want to see what their experience is like. That's I would say the one of the biggest things that often is customer success or customer experience professionals are gonna face. Just the expectation of it, how quickly this can be done.
Yeah.
But secondly, I think it's for people who want to do this more on a strategic level. I think making sure, or there's often a misconception about, is it a process map versus something else. And I think process mapping can be done as a support to customer journey mapping, but I think that a lot of times these things are confused.
Before we continue, let's take a quick break. If you're like many marketing leaders today, you're inundated with a need to improve the customer experience across an increasing number of channels and touch points, all while ensuring your team is performing well, innovating, and continuously improving. So how do you find the time to determine what's next for you, your team, your brand, and your customers? My company, GK5A, can help. Whether it is advisory services, evaluation of marketing technology platforms and solutions, or digital agencies and implementation partners, or assistance with creating strategic roadmaps and prioritization of efforts, we've done it all and served as an ally to Fortune 1000 brands in industries like financial services, healthcare, consumer electronics, professional services, and more. You can learn more about these services and contact us at www.gk5a. That's www.gk5a.com. Now let's get back to the show. And so, how do you recommend then that, there might be slightly different goals depending on where, or maybe even vastly different, but, different goals depending on where you are and what the purpose
Mhm.
of the map is. But, how do you recommend managing expectations then? Because a lot of this comes down to that, right? It's,
Right.
a manager, a leader, a stakeholder, someone has this expectation, whether it's time, scope, all of the above. How do you recommend managing expectations about what a journey map can deliver?
Yeah, I think it's, well, like any initiative, right? any initiative is going to be successful based off of stakeholder management, right? How you're able
Yeah.
to manage expectations with people who are really investing the time and the funding and whatnot. But I think the way that it's worked well for us is just making sure that number one, you're very clear at what you're trying to achieve. The more you can link your journey maps to financial impact, and I can't emphasize this enough. I think sometimes within customer experience and customer success, we kind of do some work and we're all about feelings, like, well, the customer feels bad when they're onboarding, they feel bad this, and we leave it there. It's about the feeling of the customer and that's it. But the
Yeah.
more we can link it to, here's how those emotions are impacting that experience, and that experience during onboarding, that experience during purchasing experience, the process, that experience during the support process. There's a direct linkage to our financials here, right? And the more we can integrate into the journey maps of financials, then the more buy-in you're going to get from senior leadership at the highest level, right? Because that's, at the end of the day, you want your work to directly correlate to, this is how we're going to move the needle financially for our company. And so the more you can integrate that and then bring your stakeholders along the way, set the expectation, like I used the example before. We're 90% retention rate. Our goal, we're designing when our goal is to be 96% retention rate. We are going to do this work to understand what is keeping us from, achieving that. And along the way, we're going to be giving you information and insights from customers that's going to talk about why we have this gap, right? So the more you can frame it up, that's what I think stakeholder management is about. And then they can be a bit more patient because they see kind of the vision and where it's going and so on.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense, and definitely agree. That's probably good advice for anyone in many areas of the business as well, and just managing expectations too. Last topic I want to touch on today is just talking about some of the inputs and some of the outputs of the journey mapping process. We touched
Mhm.
on some of this in a few different ways, but let's talk about the data and the information, whether that's from the customer or internal from the business. What data or information is going to be beneficial to have, and where do you see some of the biggest hurdles in getting to the right data?
Yeah, I think from a customer perspective, the data that's, I think, critical to gather, it's important to do persona work, to do persona mapping and understand what are the customers' associated desired outcomes and goals, right? So before we do any type of mapping, what we want to do is gather a really strong intelligence of who are these customers, right? In the tech industry, cloud, private cloud industry, we have, you're going to have your heads of infrastructure and operations, your CTOs, your CIOs, right, at the executive level. What are the most important things for those folks to accomplish, right? What are their goals? How are they being measured, right? What are those desired outcomes? And so you want to go into those conversations and gather that information to really make sure that you're intelligent on that, right? And so that has to be a basis and an input coming into your journey mapping. Then, because you're not going to do 700 interviews, right? You want to balance that with other pieces of data, right? You want to balance that with, let's say, survey feedback, right? So if I have done 30 interviews and customers constantly tell me the onboarding process, it's too lengthy, I don't have, the time to value is just way too long. I want to make sure that I'm collecting some other information, that there may have been hundreds and hundreds of surveys sent out. I want to see, are those surveys also reflecting that information, right? Because now I have something really clear I can go and look for and gather some survey data that might have asked 1,000 customers something similar, right? So I want to bring volumes of survey data in as well to match against interview data. Then, in addition, I want to, from internal business insights information, I want to collect my, as I mentioned many times, my retention rate information, my expansion rate information, my net dollar retention, right? So I want to collect that business data. I want to collect KPIs. So, okay, customers are telling us this information. What are the actual days that it takes to do a quote? What are the number of days it takes to do onboarding, et cetera? I want to pull in that information. Then finally, I want to collect industry benchmarking information as possible. And you ask about what are some challenges. This is one is I would find is the often the biggest challenge to collect, because now we know that customers might say, well, we're unhappy here in this area, and the numbers aren't great, but how do we also compare against some of our key competition, right? If I'm in HPE, I may want to be interested in how Dell is doing. How is Dell doing in the industry? How is Amazon? How is Microsoft doing? Where do we stand amongst our competition? Because at the end of the day, when a customer is going to decide to renew, they may look at this information. They say, well, you know what? Dell does this incredibly well. HPE doesn't do a great job of this. I'm going to go with Dell, right? And so it's really important that you're integrating industry benchmarking information where possible in your journey as well.
The reality is striking. While we can stream movies on demand and order anything to our doorstep within a click, healthcare interactions often feel needlessly complex. Healthcare marketers, this one's for you. In Shop, Stream, Heal, author Adeline Ashley shares actionable insights from industry leaders like Netflix, Amazon, and Delta, showing how healthcare can thoughtfully adapt their winning strategies. This isn't about technology for technology's sake. It's about making healthcare more accessible, intuitive, and human. Drawing from real-world successes and lessons learned, the book shows you how to create healthcare experiences that truly meet patient needs while preserving clinical excellence. Shop, Stream, Heal by Adeline Ashley features a foreword from Dave Flanagan, CEO of Sitecore. It's published by the Agile brand and now available in print and digital formats on Amazon. Go to shopstreamheal.com for more information. Yeah, makes sense. What would you say is are some of the ideal outcomes of the process? And, it's from an outputs standpoint, in other words, it, as you were saying, and we were talking about in the beginning, it's great to have the lay of the land and be able to see things, but really a journey map, when it's done well, it accomplishes things and it drives other actions and other activities. What would an ideal output or set of outputs be that people should be targeting?
Yeah. So for me, and again, it comes down to, I want to walk away from my as is journey map. I want to walk away with a document which shows me, okay, this is exactly where I am today with regards my ability to retain and expand with my customers. And here are the 2, 3, 4 areas that are impacting those numbers most, right? I need to be able to clearly state that I know that, right? And this is because this particular persona wants this, they're not getting it. And here's where I have an opportunity, right? And that particular persona, maybe they have other needs and they're not getting it. At the end of the day, it's always going to come down to the value that we're able to deliver. And if I wasn't able to prove value within the time frame of the contract, customers just not going to stay. I mean, at the end of the day. So first piece is understanding that, clearly walking away from your current state journey map with an understanding of what those areas are. And then when you design a to be or a desired state, it's being able to say, okay, here's what we want our customers, let's say 3 years from now, we want those customers to be saying about us. And here's what we're going to change to basically drive that improved sentiment. And if we're able to do this, it's almost like hypothesis, right? We believe if we're able to do X, Y, and Z, we are in the end going to be able to project out to not a 90% retention. We're going to project to a 96% retention.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. How often should you go through this process? I mean, certainly, as you mentioned, this can take anywhere from, I would say probably 2 weeks is unrealistic, but, it can take a matter of weeks to months. You mentioned 6 months, and that's not unusual to do this and do it well. And especially if it hasn't been done recently and things like that. So, what's a rule of thumb, not even necessarily the number of weeks, but like what's the mindset that you should have when, okay, it's time to revisit the journey map?
Yeah. So I normally, it depends on if you have a one person show or
Right.
or
Fair enough.
a team of people. But I don't know. I would assume a 3 to 4 month type of time frame. Interviewing, let's say 40, 35, 40 customers, I think is a good number for a large business. And as I see this as a strategic activity, for me, it's fine to do every 2 to 3 years, right? Because what you're laying out is a vision, right? And many of the concepts that you're laying out in your journey map are big picture vision, like significant changes that your business is going to undertake. And these changes are not going to be done in a couple months, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There are many times that what's revealed in the journey map are problems that are so fundamental to your business. People have been talking about it for a decade, and so, but you really want to lay this vision out and saying, if we're trying to get there, these are things that we want to accomplish. And now that you have your current state and your desired state, the next step after that is like, what are the process reengineering activities that we have to do? So you may want to double click on the maps after you lay out the vision and then say, okay, we do process reengineering now, right? And so I often go into onboarding because most companies are doing onboarding, right? And so your onboarding may be too long. Okay, now we need to double click and look at these processes, lay out our processes of how we're going to change this to get down from, let's say, 50 days to 15 days. Like, what are the process changes? And then underneath that, how are we going to use technology to help make this much easier, quicker, et cetera? So then we start bringing tools in, right? We start looking at digital customer success and all those type of things to make things much faster.
Yeah, makes sense. So, Percy, thanks so much for joining the show. One last question before we wrap up here. So, you've given a lot of great advice. We've talked a lot about different aspects of journey mapping. So, maybe even something that you've already shared. But what's a piece of advice that you'd have for those people out there? Maybe they're about to start the journey mapping process, or feel like they should be starting, or maybe they're even in the middle of a 6-month journey mapping process. What's your advice to them to make things better and improve and take the right step in the next direction?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I guess I would say thanks for having me on, Greg, because
Absolutely.
this has been great. I'm passionate about the topic about journey mapping, and if I were to offer one piece of advice, I'll give two. Unfortunately, I know you asked for one, but number one, go talk to your customers. It's so critical in this activity. Your journey maps are going to have much more life and depth to them when you talk to them, you rationalize, you look for themes, etc., across your customer base. And secondly, it would be to integrate financials into your journey mapping. Those would be two real key pieces of advice I see missing in a lot of journey mapping, and I think it would really help a lot of CX professionals. And so, yeah, I'm always happy to to discuss this topic. Anybody reach out. I mean, as you can tell, I'll go on and on about this, and I love to share ideas with people. So.
Yeah, well, no, thank you so much. And I think it's one of those topics where a lot of people think they know, and a lot of people think they're experts and everything. But then when they really get into it, are they getting the right outcomes and outputs and all those? So I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts here.
Welcome.
Again, I'd like to thank Percy Rose, Customer Success Strategy Executive at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, for joining the show. You can learn more about Percy and Hewlett Packard Enterprise by following the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.gregkihlstrom.com. That's GREGKIHLSTROM.com. To get a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, visit my website, or you can find it on Amazon or other retailers. The Agile Brand is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Until next time, stay agile.